You don't have to play the whole world and all the heavy shit right away, but you start out with just being unbiased and because the piano's innocent, it's just a big harp in a box with hammers. You know, it's just sitting there. It hasn't done you any wrong, you know, and you don't want to do her any wrong or him, whatever you want. But it's kind of, but you just listen. Just sheer beauty of chords or melodies. That's wondrous to me.
So here we are at the Key Element Studios, the heart and home of Daan Herweg, piano player extraordinaire, and coffee maker extraordinaire also, who's making some delicious coffee.
That is to be found out.
That is to be found out. While we check his little creative abode. Everything the modern musician needs. Okay, so we have a beautiful little dinner spread here, Evan.
It's lunchtime.
It's delicious, man. Yeah.
Some strawberries.
Yeah, so welcome to The Lick, the Zero to Jazz interview series. Great that you wanted to be here.
My pleasure, thank you.
And great to see your little humble abode in here. And of course later we're interested in learning some of your signature moves and tricks. But first let's just see, what are you working on? What kind of projects are you doing right now?
Actually, recently there's a whole bunch of things I'm involved in. I'm doing a lot of production work. I'm doing a lot of songwriting with various artists.
Yeah.
Something that I kind of naturally got involved in as a young jazz pianist. And it's always been good for me because you always when you record music, it's there to stay. So it's out there in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun. So I'm working with, for instance, Anne Chris, a jazz singer, writing songs for her album. I'm working with Scarlett May, a singer from Rotterdam, writing songs for her album too. It's more in the pop music idiom.
Yeah.
And with the jazz projects, of course, there's Noble Quintet.
Yeah. Interviewed him just last week, so
I also wrote some songs for him together with him. We wrote some stuff together as well. And helped him with some production issues. And that now sessions every Monday. A lot of freelance work. Susanna Alt. And of course, I used to work with all kinds of great pop acts also. I will not name them. It's kind of.
Yeah. No, I know who they are. So that's it's an impressive list because you're actually. I was reading your bio at some point, and or maybe it was. I don't know whose bio it was, but that you guys actually the first band to break the Thriller record on the Dutch top 40 with the album of it's Caro Emerald, right?
Caro Emerald, yeah. I was their pianist for I think almost 2.5 years, and I did I wrote a song for her album, co-wrote a song for her album, and I toured with her for a long time. That was great. That was like a big roller coaster. There was a lot of playing. Made me humble too because I'm always like a jazz pianist and you're like working on your heavy shit. Checking out your solos from Herbie and you're trying to be the best in the world and all that. And then you have this working pop band where you have to just play pop songs in a certain style with a certain feel, and you have to lead the band. There's a lot of psychology involved. And it's very interesting because it makes you, when you play a pop hit song for the 600th time on some radio station somewhere, it takes, that's a long way from starting out as a musician as a young kid and being eager and having all these expectations and projections on what you expect from your trade. And then you're just touring with a pop band, and it's really good, it's really healthy. It makes you humble and you can really focus on getting every bar to just sound just right. Fool around with micro timing and getting little things different every time, but still in the groove. So as opposed to having all this playing your shit and being it's a whole different thing, and it's very good to be able to do both. I think.
Cool. How did you? Because that's always sort of my starting point. How did you get started? Did you get started at a very young age?
I was 4 years old, and we had a piano at home, I think 4 or 5, something like that, and I was just actually it was like free jazz, like Cecil Taylor.
Yeah.
Go on to Google who that is, and you'll find it's like free jazz, like banging on the piano. And I was singing with it. I sang all Christmas tunes. And I think some family members recorded it. It's on all the tapes, you know.
Yeah. You still have it.
Yeah. Well, no, I think my grandma has it or something, and you hear me singing "Oh Denneboom," like a Dutch song for Christmas, really out of tune, and like shouting and banging on the piano. But something drew me to the instrument.
Yeah.
I guess I just enjoyed the sound it made.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can actually, like, some kind of cause and effect, like you press a note and then something in this machine did something and there comes sound.
Yeah.
So it fascinated me.
Yeah. And did that quickly become more? Did you quickly get lessons at a really young age and really start to play, or did you just fool around? How did that work?
Fooling around always kept going on throughout my whole life. I still do. But I got lessons pretty early on. I think after a few years, and in between those, like 4 years between me starting out and actually getting classical piano lessons, I think I just kept banging on the piano really, and just trying to find things and basically like a kid exploring stuff. You know, really open. And then I went to have lessons, and because my sister she was playing piano, she was much better, and then I also she could play Schubert.
Yeah, was your whole family very musical? Did your parents also play music?
My father played saxophone and clarinet, but he quit doing that. He did other things in his life. Became a teacher, and my mom also enjoys classical music, and there was always music on, and it was always like African American black music. So it was always like everything between John Coltrane and Ramsey Lewis, Les McCann, jazz music, Thelonious Monk, and then there was like, for classical music, there was Baroque music, Bach, then there was 200 Years of Nothing, and then there was modern music, like 20th century classical music. So it was like always, you can say, like very like jazz and soul and more light kind of music. I don't like that word, by the way, light music, but that's just what people use for it. And then like heavy classical music, like maybe Stravinsky or really modern opera or all kinds of stuff was always playing in my house. And Bach, Glenn Gould. Yeah, that I have to mention, Glenn Gould. Kleine Präludien für Anfänger, the first part in C major, actually a really easy piece. And this old stale album from Glenn Gould. And my mom used to play it, and it starts with this beautiful prelude from Bach, and it's Glenn Gould, and you hear him humming through it, just like Keith Jarrett. And that I just had to play piano when I heard that. Because I need to do that too. That's what I have to do. It was very strong. I just needed to do that.
Did you start by yourself figuring stuff like that out on the piano? Like you hear an album or?
No, I didn't know that was how it worked. I found that out way too late. Yeah. I wish I did earlier, because music you learn in an auditive way. That's really like you learn how to speak. Your mom says to a child a word, and then the child repeats. Just in an organic way. But there was always sheet music first. And in hindsight, that's actually horrible. But I somehow managed to deal with it, and I got all that stuff together later. But my ears were not that good actually when I was in my early 20s or late teens. Because I was like, okay, if you learn music, you have to have the sheet. Sheet music first. You cannot. Somehow that didn't click. I did fool around myself. I was improvising. But actually checking out stuff, I did that much later. So that's really weird actually, because everybody's always talking about that. Like you have to.
But it's interesting. Also, that there's this real. I was at for example, we were playing at the BIM House yesterday night. And they've got the improv workshop and then the session. And especially the improv workshop, which is the basic concept is go on the stage, ask a few musicians. You can't say anything. You can't make up an idea. You just one person starts, and you just have to feed off of it and just see where it goes. And sometimes it goes really interesting places. Sometimes it goes really horrible places. But the key thing is you always learn a ton from the mistakes you can make and the things that can go right. But there's some very beginner level type players there, and there's also some very heavy cats that sort of walk in. And it's actually much harder often for the very heavy players, especially the people who are like in big bands and orchestras who are playing a lot of sheet music.
Yeah.
Because they come in the first time, and often they really haven't played, without sheet music, and they'll be able to play they can play Charlie Parker solos no problem from sheet. But if you put them on stage and say, just play what comes up in your mind, they're just so far out of the comfort zone that they just can't do it, and they have to really take a few steps in between to sort of get to that point. So it's really, I always find that very, very interesting. The sort of two ways, as if it's sort of a totally different mental idiom almost, to go from one place or to go from the other.
Yeah, I think that it's not necessarily so that a great technically achieved musician is also a great improviser and communicator.
No, sure.
Doesn't necessarily have to be. There's all these different aspects of becoming a musical artist.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a reproductive musician, when you're a classical musician and you reproduce music at an extremely high level, and that in itself is great art.
Yeah.
But it's not creative art as such that you improvise something on the piano or you improvise something on your horn. In fact, I find it very hard too.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing ever to just go and sit down and create.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing in the world, and it takes a special kind of mindset. And there's a lot of people that can just go sit down and do that in any circumstance. But it's I find it quite hard sometimes. Like you don't have any ideas. You have too much ego and projection, and you want yourself to be to sound good or whatever. But all these and when you're maybe an amateur and you don't know that much, you don't know all the heavy altered licks, or you don't have anything to lose in a sense. Then you don't have the eternal dogma of having to sound good.
It's true.
You can sound bad and still be expressive. Just like real life, because real life isn't always good or happy.
True.
It can be shit as well. So why not music?
True. And it works. Usually the beginner players are, not better, but they're just so unburdened by any sort of expectations that they just go and then it's kind of fun. Somehow it just radiates out.
I think in general it's like the most important thing, and I don't really like to begin a sentence with where it's like the most important thing, because I don't like this any kind of dogma. But I think that
but the most important thing
is listening. You have to listen. Like you hear a sound and you actually listen to it. That you have a sort of consciousness about what vibrates in the air, called sound and music. Like if you strike a chord on a piano, I can show it later. Like it's actually kind of a magical thing. If you just play it and you don't listen to it, it's like nothing happens. But when you actually listen to it and put effort and really consciously experience the sound or the melody.
Yes, so here we are at the piano.
No, it's basically, I was talking about that the difference between just playing something and actually listening. It's kind of hard to show on camera. You have to experience it. But it's like, I remember as a kid that I stumbled upon all kinds of things, which is playing. Probably not those kind of chords, but I remember at a certain point I was stumbling on this chord, or it could have been D. This one, I think it was this one. I just found that, and I had I voiced it in a natural way. I didn't think about it, but it just sounded so goddamn funky. Somehow, and it reminds me of pop records that I heard probably, or Jimi Hendrix playing on a guitar, a certain sound, but just the sheer sound of it. And I didn't know that it was in fact a major, like a dominant 7 chord with a flat 10. With this chord that everybody uses everywhere, and it's like the biggest cliche in the world, whatever. And there's all kinds of things you can think about it, but I didn't think about it. I was just struck by it. The sheer magic of it. And as long as you hold on to that kind of thing, then basically you can make music, because then you can play something like another beautiful chord, like take a D chord. And if you just play it and you don't really notice, then it's nothing. But if you really actually notice the sound, or the sound coming out of the piano, or you just enjoy it, or you listen close, then it really becomes magic. So as long as you just listen to whatever you're doing and really without judging it, or without saying, okay, this is, I should play like an altered scale, or like an octatonic scale, or I should do this or that, and so. Think a lot. Basically just slow it down and really listen.
It's funny actually that you should say the D chord, because I was fooling around on my piano, a while back, and I also find that the D chord is like okay, all the chords have their own sort of beauty, but especially the D, it sounds so pretty. It's really a pretty chord.
I think it also has to do with but that's technical, like the tuning on the piano. Like it's volt and Prit, so it's like it's like a big compromise. If you would tune a piano like mathematically correct, it would sound awful. Because somehow it's tuned in a certain way, and then I don't know exactly, but I think like to me, actually keys which have more sharps in them, for instance, D exactly, and A major and E. They're much more open sounding, somehow. They're more like they want to go someplace. And then there's the flat keys, like E flat, which is the most commonly used key for a jazz standard, probably, or F or B flat, because it's a nice key for horn players. And also because a lot of the classical songwriters like Cole Porter were male singers, and it's a comfortable key for a guy to sing. It's in your male range, so they wrote a lot of songs in those keys, and it happens to also be convenient for horn players. But so you play a lot in those keys, and I think the fact that, for me personally, I don't know about you, that's a personal thing, but the key of D is or E or A or B. I enjoy also a lot B. All the black keys, really.
B is. I find that B, A, and D are like, and even if you just play the single note, because I sort of figured it out, just playing it like if you play a C, it kind of always has sort of a stern man's character to me. And then the D is such a it just wants to be pretty.
Except it's slightly out of tune on my grand piano.
Yeah, but it's still pretty. It's still pretty.
I know what you mean. There's something to it, I guess. It's because I think personally for me, because they're more rare.
Yeah, maybe.
They're not used so much in jazz. This key of D, it has an open quality. I know what you mean.
It's character.
Yeah.
No, so that's awesome. Did you also is that the way you developed? More, harmonically, or did you play around with rhythm or melody first, or did you really go in for those beautiful harmonies and really go from those sort of chord sounds, and then later it became music? How did you?
For me, it's always it sounds a little bit abstract maybe, it's kind of like a movement kind of thing. You just move your hands around. Like your hands sometimes have their own desires. You just go places. And so it's not that much of a process where you're really in charge and you learn a certain theory and you apply it. You just fool around on a keyboard and you find stuff. But it's always there has to be some kind of movement. Like a chord as such, a chord with a certain color is beautiful in itself. But for me, it's always nothing is certain. Like the chord could, certain sound notes within a chord can move. And so I guess the one thing, which is something that I learned much later, actually when I studied in New York, that I learned that really is an interesting thing is counterpoint, like the effect of melodies moving simultaneously. Maybe two melodies or two melodies within a certain harmonic setting, like within, for instance, a C chord, there's melodies moving everywhere. And then chords just happen to sometimes come into being. So the chords were always kind of organic for me. I never really practiced chords all the time. I was always just fooling around on the piano. Only later, when I studied the conservatories and stuff, then I really methodically also started studying chords. My teacher gave me 700 chords, and he said, okay, next week play on every key and every kind of voicing. And so I did. So there's a lot of work involved. And that's good because it just makes you better. Did you? That's actually because so far, but probably a little bit more back in your getting starting to practice. Is everyone I spoke to, I asked, did you sort of go by the book and learn your chords and then started to improvise and maybe play some changes, or did you do everything by ear until the point where you really couldn't get any further, and then did it force you to sort of go and actually learn your chords and say, I gotta get through that difficult step of really practicing them? Actually, only the last few years I actually really started studying by the book. but it's a book I kind of wrote myself, you know, throughout the years. It's in my head. Yeah. It's just there are certain exercises you can do which makes you more flexible and versatile, or certain things of creative thinking. But like I can also show it later. With like certain fingerings on the piano that can be convenient, or because like if you practice classical music, for instance, then you have all the time in the world, or you know, unless you have like a deadline, whatever. But you have time at home to sit down and hey, I'm gonna practice this Schubert. I'm gonna this is more efficient if I put my fourth finger there, my index finger there, blah blah. Yeah. So you have all the time in the world to make it sound really suave, really nice. Yeah. But when you play jazz, go, you know, boom, you have to just go and play. My companion is coming in.
Hello, companion. Welcome. Hey, James.
Hey, man. That's good. And also, you really like you can make these. You have to make these choices instantly. Yeah. And there's certain clever ways of thinking that you can maybe incorporate in your practice. Because later on in the jazz club, when you're doing your gig, you have to make these choices really quick. So you can practice that too. So. I'm quite happy that I started studying methodically later, but I think it has to do with age, because when you're a kid, you know, everything is, you know, you're just so much more flexible, and you're so much less boundaries and less boundaries that you can much easier learn. You can learn in easier, more organic way.
It's true, but it really it amazes me that the idea is very much, you know, when you start learning music, you have to sort of do what your teacher says. Well, the teacher will always say, you know, learn your scales. Even in our methods always say, you know, practice your damn scales because they're important. Because everyone with hindsight sees how important they are. But interestingly enough, everyone I've interviewed so far is like, yeah, those chords are really important, but I only learned them once, you know, I got to the limits where, you know, my ear just couldn't take me anymore further, and I was noticing that I was playing the same solos every time and every song, and you know, then people come to that point where it hurts so much that they say, you know what, I have to get into this chord. So that's an interesting observation.
I think it's really, it has to do, there's different elements in playing music. You have to know what you do, like you have to cognitively, like in your brains, like understand it, you know, it helps, it gives a certain depth. Like, alright, I'm playing in the key of C major and I'm modulating to B now and I'm playing in 5/4, like these kind of things. And when you play, you forget them. You need to think about it because it doesn't help. But when you practice, you do. It's good, you know. You feed the brain and you start, you know, you listen and you get better. But there's of course also the feeling thing. Like you have to be expressive as a human being. You want to sing or dance or, you know, or play the piano or whatever. Just be expressive and give a story to the world. Which is more a feeling-based kind of, more visceral kind of, or how do you say, like more.
It brings everything together. But you can't do it if you don't have the technique.
And that's my third point. Is the technique. So there's to say you have the intellect, you have the feeling, you have the technique, and if you have, and if you want to be like a wholesome musician, like and you want to be like Herbie Hancock or whatever, these three elements are just one.
They have to come together.
But in on the road to it, you practice for a while technique.
Most of the guys seem to, including myself, you know, that at some point a certain one song comes along which you really like and which takes you sort of to the next level on the instrument, because that's that first song that you just play to death and you just keep practicing it, and it really sort of opens up the doors to everyone else. Do you know which song that was for you?
It was not a song, it was a bass line, and I think it drives my mom crazy. It's kind of like, it was just from Hit the Road Jack in C minor. I don't even know if that's the original key, I don't have perfect pitch. But I just know boom, 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 boom. To play it on the piano in octaves, and I just improvised on it for I think many years. And it got really still. I just played this bluesy riffs on it with bad timing, and I just enjoyed that bass line. I always enjoyed a good groove. I produced hip hop music too, and like always just like when your head starts bouncing. I think rhythm basically. So the piano has a big drum kit, like you just bang on it. Kind of organic, because it is. It's 88 pitched tones. This is Chick Corea says this is not me, so it's his credit. He says it's 88 pitched tones, and he's right. There's a giant drum kit.
It can be. Can you still do it? Can you still play? Can you still play that first song the way you played it then? Do you still know?
This sounds horrible. I can try it.
Well, let's check it out then.
It's basically just a bass riff. I just played this over and over for years. I just started. Like, I was just playing C minor pentatonic licks when I was like 6 years old. All the stuff that everybody, you know. Probably not with the timing yet. I'm really like cheesy. I don't know. That's what I did.
Cool,
I did it for many years. Yeah,
cool,
I have to say, and just basically grooves, you know. Also like boogie woogie stuff. And I didn't even play it in the blues form yet. And look, I have students who play it all the time. So you have to play it in the blues form. You go to the first and the fourth and the fifth and the fourth. But I didn't even do that. I just stuck to this one chord and just banged on it for hours.
Cool.
So that's what I did when I was 7. You know.
Did you feel that the rhythm part is you know, actually maybe even more important than, you know, knowing the tones or the melodic stuff at first? Just
really basically get into the groove. That's it. If you get into the groove, anything will sound good. If you play on the piano. It's not really okay. It's nice maybe. But once you're like 1, 2, 3, you're gonna. All kinds of stuff. Doesn't even matter what you do. Whatever, you know.
Yeah,
will start sounding good in a way.
Yeah.
You know, or you play a groove in your left hand, which is slightly more hard, like. Any kind of groove that makes it just sound nice. And whenever you see great musicians play and they get into the groove, they start moving. Because once you have a groove, you can fool around more easy with nice timing and phrasing and mess around with the groove. Actually, the groove in itself becomes like an extra musician you're playing with. Like you're playing a duet with your foot who's playing the groove. 1, 2, 3. A plane can crash outside, but the groove will go on. You know, you just play. Doesn't matter what you play. Just in this groove, you know? You can just fool around in a certain key or whatever. Just play nice stuff in a certain tempo.
Of course, also one thing that you know, for anyone who's really good at something, you know, and you're, you know, obviously just have an amazing capability on the piano, is you always at some point, you know, run into some problems, because you know everybody does. And that's just part of the game. So, you know, did you have some like major hurdles along the way that you know ran into, and maybe you can, you know, tell a bit about them and how you overcame them also?
Yeah, I think part of growing as a musician or as a professional, whatever, is like you're learning about yourself and what your strong spots are and your weak spots. Like for instance, I didn't have such developed ears because I simply wasn't aware of the fact that you learn music by ear. Because you really do. I mean, and I know that now, but I didn't know as a teenager. I said to my classical teacher, who was actually in fact a great teacher, he was a super cool guy, and we had a lot of fun, and he showed me really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I said to him, I want to play jazz. And it's not his world. He didn't know, so he said, okay, yeah, jazz. Well, I have a real book. So he gave me a real book, and he gave me this Miles Davis tune up, and it had 2 5s in it. I didn't know. He knew a little bit 2 5s. He showed me, okay, you play like that. And so I learned it in this rational, cognitive kind of way. I started like, okay, now I play jazz. I'm gonna go play some jazz now, and then I get the book. This is completely stupid.
Yeah.
Like you want to play jazz, you put on some Red Garland record, and you try to steal the licks. That's how you do it. But I just learned that really late, and I mean, you must never regret things in life because it's stupid. And in fact, maybe it's even good because I have also a rather rational way of doing things sometimes, which can lead to extra creativity.
I think so.
A little bit of a mad professorness is never bad.
Yeah, no, it's never bad. It's never bad.
Yeah. So and when you learn music only in a emotional-based way, which is always regarded as the highest form of learning in music, also in conservatory didactics, at least I like, you have to feel it and feel it. this in itself becomes a rather annoying dogma. So I say screw that.
Yeah.
If you're like a person,
everything
that's
actually,
the thing.
I think that like any person is like, this is the most. You just said it, this is the most important thing. That's always bullshit.
Never trust anybody who starts a sentence with that. Especially, we had a lot of American. I love America, by the way. I live in New York. I'm not against Americans, but it's a lot of American didactics who gave masterclasses in school, and they have a way of speaking like so and this and that, and you do such things, and basically it's all a load of crap because it makes you really. And they're all right. Yeah. They're all right, but they're all wrong in the. I know. I interviewed a lot of great piano players, and there's this notion that you have to pre-hear everything you play. Like you pre-hear everything. Yeah. And you have to be completely in control, and like a master on a chessboard, you think 5 moves ahead. Yeah. And you're working on the 4th bar that you're not playing, and that's like the highest goal. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm talking to you. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to say. No. That's. So we're just improvising along the way, and we listen to ourselves and we correct ourselves. That's how we work as humans. So it's really a dogma that didn't work for me. I feel exactly the same way. In fact, I just recently, for another book, was working on a definition of jazz, like redefining sort of, because people always ask, what is jazz? Kind of a hard question. That's kind of a hard question. So I thought, can I come up with an answer to that where I'm actually satisfied, like, that could sort of answer it. And I came up with it. I'm actually curious to see what you think of it. I said, jazz happens, doesn't even have to be music, when, a bunch of people, who are skilled at something come together and for a limited time on, planet Earth, create a space where the rules don't apply. Because, there's lots of rules and they all work. But if you play together the right way, you can break all the rules under the right circumstances, and if you can just it's all context. And of course, because you're playing around with changing the context, you can really break all the rules. You can say to any jazz member, these musical rules can be broken, but under the right circumstances, they all just fall apart and can be broken. So I thought that was the only sort of thing I could come up with. Yeah, I think it's very difficult. It's a music philosophical question, and it's also a historical question. Yeah. Like jazz is Louis Armstrong's jazz. Yeah. What's Beyonce jazz? Well, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. I don't care. D'Angelo, Sure, it's jazz. I mean, whatever you want, It's such a broad, subjective question. But it's almost synonymous with just creativity. Yeah, it's creativity. I think improvisation is a factor. Yeah. Like I think if someone is like in a pop band and it has jazz elements, like the band I played with, or some of the bands I played with, or soul bands, but it's all very fixed. There's very limited creativity and improvisation. Yeah, that is much less jazz. And there's no judgment there, but it's not jazz. Yeah. It's not as jazz is the highest form of expression or something. I stay far away from those kind of qualifications. I don't like it. Yeah. But I think what you say, like it has something, like there's no rules and stuff. But on the other hand, there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of like if you listen to Joe Henderson soloing on a modal piece, you just hear this guy making loads of choices. He just impositioning these, playing all these weird chords, like, and there is some rationality there. There is some thinking going on. You can hear his brains crack, So it's like a complete misconception that these guys don't think. I think in fact all great creative quantum leaps, like Miles's record Kind of Blue and all this stuff, was very profound and very from a feeling base, but it was also rather conceptual and rather intellectual. And I think it's a great misconception that it has to be all organic. True. Yeah, it's maybe Kenny Werner also. I know you're also a big fan. Says ciao man. Is like you have to, when you practice, you go to work. You put all the information in, and then when you play, it comes out, and then you're not necessarily thinking, I'm going to go to that chord, but you've already learned those transitions. They're somewhere inside of you, and they just come out. Maybe there's some thinking going on. Maybe you're just feeling in that moment, but you can't play something if you don't master the material. So you have to have played that part before, or some of the sub parts before, and maybe you link them together in a way you never played before, or you play something that is sort of
close to what you practice, but just a bit different, and it's there's always sort of a juxtaposition between what you know and what you don't know, and what can happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of jazz is rather approximate. It's not precise.
No,
not like a Scriabin etude or something, which I could never play.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a lot of approximation, which is I think in itself is not good. You should always strive for this kind of perfection thing. It's always like that you execute something really well.
Yeah.
And this is just a really long formative period you have to go. It takes just many hours of practice. That's the nitty gritty. Like you have to sit down and practice. There's no years and years. I mean, it all sounds like this giant desert you have to stand before and you have to walk through it. No, it's fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
like you can sit down in the piano and just practice for an hour, and then you just forget and play and you have fun and whatever. But I think a more important thing is that you just focus on details. Like it's much better to just really nail one little lick.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter what lick. Just any kind of lick.
Yeah.
It'll be 3 notes or maybe it's like the most complex conceptual thing you just made up, going over 6 chords and blah blah. Whatever it is, but just nail it. Just make it really sound really right, make it really sound good, and then you do it again and again and again and again. And you repeat it, and then you're done in an hour, and you do it the next day, and then you just make sure it sounds really good. It's just as jazz musicians, as we say, just in the pocket. It just sounds really good. And then you leave it alone for a while, and then a year after that you might go to a session, or you have a gig, and here it comes out. Maybe even in another key or somehow. It's just these kind of things, like how the brain works. And it's very it's technical, muscular, it's intellectual, like conceiving things, and then it's the listening and the feeling. All these elements come together in a slow way, and you work a little bit on that, and then I forgot to also really enjoy music, and then you work on that, and then all these elements just
come together.
Yeah, you go one step forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes it feels horrible, and then you you practice for 5 weeks, and you feel like shit because it sounds horrible and like you're rushing and blah blah blah. But then it's basically just chill out and go see a nice concert and be inspired and work on the feeling. Or put on a Billie Holiday record and sing along and don't think about it, or these kind of things. Like you just work on all these different elements.
How do you? Because it's always also a question that I ask is, how do you approach your own practicing now? Do you have sort of a personal philosophy? I know you do, but can you tell a bit about how you approach?
Like right now?
Yeah, right now, how you practice, or maybe how you progressed, like from when you first started to how you practice now, and why that sort of changed, or how you
basically I practiced too little in my I think my teenage years. I was kind of like a bit of a classical talent. I could play all these interesting classical pieces. I have no freaking idea how I ever did it, but I was playing like this Brahms sonatas, and somehow I got through them. Nowadays I can't really. It takes me a lot of effort to get this perfection back. It's because I just improvise. I just start improvising. But then and my teacher, he wasn't really rigorous or strict to me about like that I had to practice. And my parents were like, yeah, whatever, they didn't care. So I mean, they cared, but it was like they didn't say you have to practice. So there was no, I could just do whatever I want. So I basically just kept on playing boogie woogie and all this stuff, and I didn't really advance technically. But then somehow I got in the conservatory. I don't even remember how that went. That was just something I started doing, and I got accepted, and I was oh shit, I'm in the school now, and everybody's like really, really freaking good, God, So I was like, okay, now I have to practice. So I started to practice more methodical, and I had big trouble with that still. I just lack of discipline and also like a lot of distraction, and you get these master classes and
egos, opinions, distractions.
Yeah, no, and I went to New York. I did this exchange program from the Conservatory of Amsterdam. I got this like heavy scholarship and all was really cool. And I went to New York for half a year, did Manhattan School of Music, and that's when I had this change of surroundings, and it just completely made me focus. For one thing, I didn't have all those gigs because I was touring with a lot of bands in Holland. I was already playing a lot, so and that messes around. I can advise that if you want to practice music, it's really good to play gigs and gigs and gigs, but it's also good to a certain point to say, okay, no gigs, I'm just gonna focus for a while. That's good.
I did it actually too, like the vacation period, or like because I don't do a lot of gigs, I just do sessions because I just don't have time for gigs because of my other work. But you know, sometimes I just don't do any sessions for like 4 or 5 weeks, and I just practice. Try to, you know, usually I'll just get so annoyed with one aspect where I think, that really sucks. I really have to. I can't go on playing until I've solved this problem. Then I solve it, and then I can sort of go back, and then, you know, half a year later I run into some other problem, and I think, no, I can't play on until I fix this, and then I sort of go into the lab and, you know, try to fix something. That's sort of how I do it too.
It's like the most beautiful place for a musician is going into the lab, or as they say into America, go to the shed. You just go in solitary confinement, or like like a hermit, and then you just work on things. That's the best ever. That's just really, that's how you grow. Like you step out of this world of do's and don'ts and have to's and all
and so you did that in New York. You really went.
Yeah, because I was in the school there, so I had a lot of obligations, so to speak. But they were all in sync with my own ambitions. So, and I started studying much more methodical. Like I had a lot of piano lessons, which were more like feeling, basically sit down and it's so beautiful. Blah, blah. But there, I mean, being the thinking kind of boy that I am, you know, I do have a brain, you know, not just emotions. And I started studying more methodical. I got a teacher who gave me more like methodical exercises, and I did some self-study. I was actually thinking really rational. Okay, so I was already 24, 25. I thought, okay, so I'm older. I don't want to have a killing piano technique. You know, I just want to be like really technical too. Apart from creative and all the stuff that supposedly I was a little bit according to my teachers. But I thought, okay, I want to have like Horowitz technique, like impossible. But you know, in life nothing is impossible. You just, so that's the plan. So I got this actually like a piano method from this Tobias method. It's like a classical method, and it basically comes down to like every day you relax and you put your hand on the piano and you lift your finger, and it's kind of like what Kenny does too, but it's a little bit more focus on classical piano. There's millions of exercises you can do and all kinds of stuff that make your hands independent and stronger. But it just basically becomes like you press down a note and you focus on the muscle that's actually pulling it down. Like it's very like mega super conscious of every little move you make on piano. And you do that for like maybe an hour. Like every finger. It's like really, it's like meditation. Really. And then after that, you just take a break or something, and you go do something else, and put your mind somewhere else. And you go back and you practice, and you work on certain tunes, maybe, or you work on chords, or you work on not necessarily very technical things, but just your phrasing, or you check a solo, or you do your homework for whatever school you're in, and then it adds up to like maybe 6 or 7 hours that you're actually really practicing and working on music. And I did that for half a year. Very, very disciplined, but not. It was something beyond me. It was something that I was just actually doing and kind of like observing with myself what it would do. Kind of unbiased, because a lot of times people don't practice the right way because they have too much expectations, or they practice for the wrong reasons because they want to be really good or whatever. They don't really practice because it's just what they do. You know, I mean, I said, okay, I'm going to be a professional musician. So then I need to practice. Just like if you want to be a super scientist, you just have to read a lot of books. Or if you want to learn how to make street pavements, you have to have the right techniques. It's just what you do. Because a lot of times you practice technique, and you say, okay, so I'm going to play a C major scale. And it's basically the same thing with what I just said. Like if you play a chord, you don't listen, it sounds like shit. If you listen, it can be really beautiful. So it's just the same effort you can put in practicing technique, but it takes energy and takes discipline. But you play C major scale, and first thing that comes to mind, okay, this damn C major scale, I've done 100 times. Shit, why should I practice C major? Just the white keys, whatever. It's not interesting. I should practice also B flat because it's more heavy, or I should practice octatonic. So it doesn't freaking matter what you do, just as long as you focus. So okay, you play the damn C major scale and you play it perfectly, you know. Like you play it just really nice. Now that helps, because if you just play it like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. You see, I didn't execute that the right way. If I focus, still mess it up a little bit, but you focus even more. See, it doesn't matter. I messed it up the second time, but I didn't judge it. You know? I'm just okay. I just need to do this correctly. And it's just a stupid C major skill, but it's actually effective. If you, I mean, in fact, it's not stupid. It's really beautiful. You know?
To really get to those details, you know. Yeah.
It's damn beautiful.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can do all kinds of things with it, and then, of course, you apply the same stuff to doing more complex things, like anything you practice, you know, or any kind of scales or stuff that's maybe more complex or interesting or whatever. But you do them with the same unbiased. You try to execute it in a correct way. You play a chord and play it really nice. Like you. Simple stuff or simple chords. You just play them really nice. And keep your attention there. This was maybe more complex what I was playing, but it doesn't matter. It applies to everything. A simple 2-5-1. You know, progressions everybody has to practice. I play them now broken, but you can also just, like if you play a simple exercise like playing a 2-5 in C major, you can do that with all the white keys. But now do it and focus on your left thumb, for instance. Like get this get it out correctly, no? You put your attention to that, and then this 2-5 becomes a whole new thing, because if you practice that, you can go. Like you can do all kinds of stuff, you know. You start to focus, or you say, okay, I want to play this 2-5, but I want every note to be perfect. Like I want to hear every note, like really in balance. See, that was kind of okay, but my right hand index finger wasn't strong enough. My fifth wasn't really there, so I'm going to focus on getting a fifth out. It's better, but not good enough. But it's getting there. So also on the most simple thing you do, you can put attention to the detail, and then it becomes much more worthwhile, because then you focus, your brain is working, your technique is working, and it's much more focused, as opposed to just, all right, that's the 5, it makes no sense. So
I think that really makes a difference, because that's something that, you know, I think that everybody runs into, because it's hard to really get the focus and to really get to those deeper, those fine details. But the difference between, you know, the average pianist and the great pianist is that all those little differences, all those little details with the great pianist are just spot on, and with the average it's like, you know,
well, I don't consider myself great or anything. I mean, I don't want to say, it's not up to me, but I still fuck up all the time. Like I watch myself back on video or hear recordings, I'm like, oh god, oh man. And it's every musician, you know. I think if you're like great piano players that are all like frustrated, it's never perfect, so you just have to deal with that. You know, I played some examples which weren't really perfect, you know. I'm human, screw it. It's kind of like, I mean, it doesn't matter, so don't be too judgmental, just work on things.
No, it's fun, but it's working on the details. It's such a good exercise to really get into those little details and try to work on them.
Getting to little details, slowing things down, you know, and actually listening and invent and have fun, and all these things are much more important. And then of course, like for half an hour and an hour a day, you will be that serious and you will practice whatever, like pentatonics or hexatonics or octatonics or chords or 2-5s or voice leading, all this shit you can practice. You just pick one, it doesn't matter, and you work on that. You can say, okay, I'm gonna play in the key of D flat, in tempo, doesn't matter, so you get key of D flat, you know, it's like the Ionian mode, like, anything that's constant is the tempo. You just play in his key and you try to be expressive. Change to another key. And you just play in that key for a while. You make your hands move and you stumble into chords. But then you're giving yourself an assignment and that's what you're doing. And you focus on that. And the moment you fuck up, like you play... Oops, I played the A, which is not in the skill. You say, no, I don't. It sounds beautiful. I want to play it, but you don't yet. You say, okay, I'm going to restrict myself. I'm just going to play in this wonderful key of D flat. And it may sound stupid, or you have like things that may sound wrong or whatever, but it's just you focus on that, and you find the chords and the sounds that work. Oops, that's not loud. You know, it doesn't matter, but you restrict yourself.
Yeah.
And so
that's really how you grow harmonically, stumbling in and setting these type of exercises for yourself, and getting into the fine details.
If you want to learn harmony, you have to start to listen to what's happening under the melody. So you have to listen to the bass and the middle voices.
Yeah.
I'll show you. You play F chord. You can play like this. F will be the melody, but this the third and the fifth, they make the harmony. So you fuck around with them. Now they go half step up. What happens if I do? You can all name all these chords, but basically it just starts with consciousness about, like you keep the top and the lower voice the same, you mess around the middle voices and even make it sound ugly. It's not that, but you play with conviction, you just listen to it. And then of course you study theory also. It's too much to get into now, but it just starts with just basically just listening. Hey, this voice, where's it going? Wants to go, where do the voices want to go? You keep this top note the same. When you do random shit, doesn't matter. Dissonant stuff, but
that's a cool thing. I'm actually going to try that at home on my piano.
It helps if you do it alone, because if you play it together with someone, it's always like, oh shit, I don't want to miss his or her flow, or so you restrict yourself much more naturally, because you don't want to fail or something. If you're alone, you can do whatever. You can bang your hand on the piano, nobody cares. So you can use that advantage, and you can just fool around. So you hold the top notes, and you just fool around. You move your thumbs or your index finger. Take some chances. Oh geez, what's happening? Make it 4 voice chords. It sounds weird maybe, but this is what makes color and harmony. And then and you leave the melody the same, Cool, man. Then at a certain point the melody starts moving and you have to play an actual song and it becomes much harder. You narrow it down to this kind of thing. And then you may also theorize it. You think, okay, I'm going to play 4th degree of F, kind of like B flat. Okay, I'm going to play like the 3rd degree maybe, like A minor. It just sounds like F major 7 because you have the F in the root. You can also think about it at a certain point, but first you just start by just playing. And I've also maybe one other exercise which is nice for pianists, or maybe have some kind of classical training and they're stuck and they want to improvise. And it's a kind of a little bit of it may be weird, but you just sit down at the piano and you play random stuff. But you relax first, and you put your hands in the right position, which is always nice because if you want to do that, you can just put it hold them, put tension on all your muscles and let go, and you just be conscious of exact the amount of energy you need to hold your hands up, and you turn your hands around and you do like this, and then you go like into the natural position. That's like your touche. That's your position. Turn around again. Here you are. Now you can play. But you just play random stuff. You close your eyes and you play random. You play a random chord, doesn't matter, it may sound awful. I didn't think about it. And you just listen for 10 seconds. Let's make it 5 for now. You let go and you just get the sound back in your head. Don't think about what it was or what it's just, it's an exercise in listening. you train yourself in becoming more conscious as a listener. And you may give yourself exercise. Okay, put both my hands really high. You just listen. It sounds like Schoenberg, sounds really hip. But you just register the sound. You don't judge it, but it helps you just listen and relax. And then of course you can start playing tunes or grooves or harmonies. And but you apply the same thing. You also listen to that. You know? You also like. With the same consciousness, you play that stuff, but now you're playing a tune. But it's the same thing as you would just play something and you just really listen to it. Just actually take a second, turn your phone off and listen to the sound. It makes you more conscious as a musician, and you train your this kind of like peaceful, just listening to things. So that's what I want to like stress.
Yeah,
that's cool. Really make a point of it, like just really basically cool down, relax. You don't have to play the whole world and all the heavy shit right away, but just start out with just being unbiased and because the piano's innocent, it's just a big harp in a box with hammers. You know, it's just sitting there. It hasn't done you any wrong, you know, and you don't want to do her any wrong or him, whatever you want. But it's kind of, but you just listen. Just sheer beauty of chords or melodies. To me. And this
I think that's actually like, because I already told you this before, I think that you're one of the few pianists I know who has this very distinct own personal sort of style, the way you know move through chords, and you know you recently you gave me this song Journey to Mars, for example, which is also this really great you know chordal journey almost, and you have this really distinct style with that, and you know seeing you play like this, I really can sense where it comes from.
Started with a repetitive note. Open fifth, so started to fill it up. There are some principles that work there. You just have like parallels. I just like the sound of a whole step parallel. Because this says, okay, I'm in this key. And then immediately go out of it. And you kind of stay in the key. You don't go too far away. You know. I have a personal thing that I don't necessarily enjoy it when piano players play hip stuff to sound hip.
No, I like that. I like that sort of thing.
If you play like a beautiful standard, you play. And I mean, I'm not even that trained in it, because I always like, if you play. It's kind of like whatever you can do whatever you want, and it will sound really cool.
Yeah, but it's the same thing, you know. That's the cool thing about it. I just like to be
more in control, and it's hard, you know. I can't really be. I mean, kind of like you fool around, but I try to be more conscious with what I do, and I want to really control it, which I can. So I mess it up also, which is I honestly have to say. But it always like it's too gratuitous for me. It's too easy to just go. But it's fucking easy to do, because you can just just go anywhere and oh, look at me. I never really liked that, but it's a personal thing. Maybe for a lot of pianists, they need to do so.
Yeah, no, but there's a certain thing, an identity to it, where it's the same like something you did with Pete Philly and Roos Jonker. I think also like a chordal sort of it's not.
I think I remember. That's also. I always have a big fight with if you have there's a certain thing in harmony, like you can play in a tonal context, and you play a dominant, and it will sound like normal, like natural. You can also play subdominant, like, sounds, to me it just sounds much more, I'm going to use a political correct word here. It sounds much more nice, or like, yeah, nice is not the word, but it just sounds cooler, I think.
Yeah.
Like any kind of subdominant, you know. Coltrane and his pieces also will love like a lot of subdominants, and then going back to the root chord. So I just like these subdominants, but they're also like, it's like nuclear energy, you know. It's like dissolution, but it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So it's like if you play this and you play these chords, it's like the most cool and wise and heavy sounding stuff ever. So you know, I always like I try to avoid them, but sometimes for that tune I just, it was okay. There you go. It's kind of, you know, for me it's...
Yeah, it was one of those sort of non-lick things that stayed with me right from the first, like, that just sounds so good.
But then you just have to also like, actually this, I couldn't play it a few years ago. It's way too cliche. I was like, man, it's so cliche. You can play minor 9. Oh, it's so over-expressive. But if you just simply don't judge and you just let it be, it's just pretty in itself. It can't help being pretty.
Yeah.
You just play it, and then it becomes music again. You're actually in kind of B minor. Switch to B major, but you don't go straight to B major, you play some chords that are part of B major. And then you go back to B minor really. And you go major again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just kind of mixing the major and minor. That's cool, you know.
Love that. Well, since we're here, because of course we already learned a ton of stuff here from you, especially the piano players are probably really loving this right now. But do you have something like a cool, the signature sort of part or a lick for us? Because of course that's part of this interview series.
Yeah, I know, and you asked, and I've thought about it a lot, and it's really hard because. Yeah. Any lick will do. That's what I've just been an advocate. Like, it doesn't matter what freaking lick you play. You just down or play it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you play, you know, like. That doesn't matter if you just play it in the right way. It's really cool.
Yeah, but of course we need something that's you. That's something that doesn't have to define you, but something very, very, very Danish.
It's not really a lick. Then I mean, I could, if I would have to think of a lick, it would be a lick. My first lick that I stole from a record, which is from Red Garland, is it's just a nice lick in F. You know, it's cool for everybody to check out, because you can play in all kinds of settings and all kinds of keys, and it's just a nice bebop. It's just a cool lick.
That's great. That's great. What are you playing there? What was that?
It's just you just play around this F major chord. And you first play around the root, but you don't go to the root right away. You go, you take it over with your third finger, and you go chromatic down from the third of the C7 chord, really, which you're actually harmonically in at that point. And you go to the root of the tonic chord. So it's like over 2/5. You know, kind of.
Nice.
And it's just swing and lick. And in the end you go to the root. It's just the first lick I learned when I was 15 or 16, when I actually started, hey, I can just steal stuff from records. Here's what I would like to stress, it's not necessarily lick. I showed you a little lick already, I showed you tons of licks, but that we need some more hours, you know. But I mean, I would say, if you play all the cliche stuff that you need to learn, for instance, your D minor, G7, C major, and you do all the keys and yada.
Yeah.
But the moment you mastered them, the moment you can play, you know, all the cool stuff, and you master them, you start messing them up. You start like leaving things out. Like you play for D minor, you don't play this, you play that, and for G7 you play this. These kind of things. Like, so you play sort of the correct voice leading, but you mess it up a little bit because it sounds more cool. Or you play it even more classical, like for instance, so you can actually hear the voices moving. Like, like D minor C7, you play. I like that stuff, you know. So like or you play, and of course you need to practice all that stuff in time. And you do it in every key. Like you move middle voices around in your voicing. I think that I kind of like that, of course. Bill Evans does it, Brad Mel, everybody does it already, but it makes it sound more fresh, and you can practice more the counterpoint stuff. Like this is basically 2/5 in C without the root, but it's like. It around, like you do weird things, you go places, take your chances. But first you need to, of course, learn all the classic stuff, you know, and all the ways you need to be able to do. I've practiced it 100 million times. And then, like you play,
just do all your inversions. And you get all
of course, you do drop twos and everything. This is many subtopics you can learn, but I don't want to digress too much. But the basic point is, you learn the biggest freaking cliches in the world. You're 2/5. And you play them from the heart, so it sounds good. And then you mess them up. Like you can play a 2/5 in C. You know, all kinds of weird things. Which is basically this. You know, so you learn all the stuff you just need to learn, the cliches, and do it with focus. Give yourself time for it. And then you mess them up. You leave notes out. Just play this, and then you go to the G7 chord, not just this, but you play maybe a sound nobody would expect, or you play the C major chord like this, and you play classical. You make like a classical, like Schubert kind of thing, you know. And then maybe you even go to minor, and you go back to major right away. Like you mess it up. That's what I like. That's the stuff I like, but that's also personal, of course.
No, but that's cool. That's cool to to have something, the Daan personal juicy stuff.
Well, many players use this stuff many years, but I just like to. Somehow I always like to move my left hand around, so then it changes. The sound changes. So
great, man. Great stuff. Thank you,
You're welcome.
And of course, well, I always say let's just finish it up with some beautiful music.
Right.
So let's.
As long as I play music, I just remember this, when I was a child, that I was just super inspired just listening to people like Glenn Gould or Keith Jarrett or Beyonce for that matter. It doesn't matter, but just this little spark of inspiration you must never ever lose. So whenever you feel you're stuck a little bit or whatever, just go and find inspiration. Find it in life, find it when you just look out the window, find it with other people and nice conversation, all these kind of things. But it's most important to enjoy life and put that in your music, because that's your job as a musician.